Good evening, everybody. Hope you all are having a great day. We just got done with a live stream over at Pinnacle, is in the community. Just got done watching a live stream over at Pinnacle's website, talking about Deadlands, Lost Colony, Mad World. We'll talk a little bit more about that later, but it was a good stream. I really enjoyed it, and made me realize how much stuff there is to Deadlands. Shane mentioned that it's coming up on 30 years of Deadlands. There's been so much lore, so much that's happened, so much story to be told, and it's a lot. But it's I think it seems like a great system, and surprisingly I have not played much of it. I think I realized I played two things. I played half of Night Train just because we died pretty early, and then I played Sins of the Fathers, which is for Deadlands Dark Ages, which isn't even out yet. So I really need to get on it and get some Deadlands played. But that's what we're here to do today. If you're watching the Savage Goose Show, we're here to talk about all things Savage Worlds news in the past week. We're going over the newsletter. We're talking about any other news, which I don't really have anything extra today. We're talking about some Kickstarters. We're going to talk about some new products, and we're going to do a licensee spotlight. And finally, we're going to talk about crunchiness. Are rules light versus rules heavy, and where does Savage Worlds fit into that spectrum? So hopefully we can get some good conversation going, talking about what is a game, what's a heavy game, what's a rules light game, what is maybe crunchy, and where Savage Worlds fits into all that. But first, the newsletter. Let's go ahead and jump into that. As you can imagine, the first thing today for the newsletter is, in fact, actually, I'm doing this way too big for you, aren't I? Let's go ahead and fix that real quick. There we go. Okay, that should be like a little bit better for you guys. Yeah, let me stop the. And here's the. I hope that makes it a little better. No. Nope, just so really wide for you guys. So let me go and just go like this and then like this. And remove this, remove that. No, it's just gonna stay wide. Okay. Well, you guys are gonna see a wide version of everything until I fix that later. So we are the newsletter today. We got Mad Worlds for Deadlands. Lost Colony is now on backer kit. It is well over their funding goal, which it usually is. This is just a booster campaign, so there's no like extra stretch goals or anything. Everything's already set on what's happening. And one thing they have pointed out is that there is a really good deal if you have not gone into Deadlands Lost Colony yet. If you get the $150 tier, it gets you the box set for Deadlands Lost Colony. It gets you the Maw of Oblivion plot point campaign, all the goodies from that campaign, as well as all the goodies for Mad World, all in print for $150. That's a really good deal. Super tempting. So, check that out. Because, yeah, this looks really good. There's also some stuff that you can only get in Kickstarters that's also in that. So take a look at that for sure. The Savage World Science Fiction Companion is now available for order, and all the stuff that came with it. The orders for the Kickstarter are all kind of being shipped right now. I just got my tracking number today. I know some people have already gotten their stuff. My tracking number came in today. It has not shipped yet for myself because I apparently wasn't fast enough to get on that. Actually, I think I also had a custom order, so that also kind of delays things. But if you are interested in getting a Science Fiction Companion, you can now order it on their site for either PDF or the print options, as well as all the other stuff like the Savage Tales book, the action deck, the R-type cards, the pawn sets, vehicle cards, all that. So check that out if you're interested in getting the Science Fiction Companion. Savage Worlds is now on Dice Weaver Virtual Tabletop. This is a newer site for character creation, and it's not. It's a virtual tabletop of sorts. It's definitely a very new, I think it's still coming around. There's still a lot of things that I think are being worked out. But their goal is to support a lot of different systems, and that includes Savage Worlds Venture Edition. You can make a character sheet. I wouldn't say it's as robust as like say Savage.us is currently. And I know there's some other sites that I've been personally trying to get to support Savage Worlds and as a character creator. But this has a VTT as well, so it's not just a character creator, but hopefully we can use that for that as well. Alrighty. All right, so here, and then next up, Fear Agent for Savage Worlds is now on Fantasy Grounds and Steam. If you're not familiar with Fear Agent is a... almost dropped on whiskey. Fear Agent is a role-playing game for Savage Worlds where you play as these agents of... I think the organization is called Fear. But it's an older setting for Savage Worlds. I believe it was made for Deluxe Edition originally. I don't know if this is going to be updated for the Suede versions, but if you're interested in getting it on Fantasy Grounds, you can now do so. Hey, if you want to run riffs for Savage Worlds at Gen Con, all you have to do, and you get for free if you do this, you can sign up to do so. All I have to do is run 4-hour games with 6 or more players in each game, and that will give you enough credits with Gen Con and with the Palladium to get a free GM badge. So if you know how to play Rifts, if you know it very well, and you want to run some games and kind of promote Savage Worlds at Gen Con, you can do so at Gen Con and get in for free. If I played Rifts, I would consider doing this, but I don't play a lot of Rifts, so that won't really help me a whole lot. But either way, if you are interested in that, go check it out. Licensee Spotlight, Norse-inspired cyberpunk for Savage Worlds. This is 9 worlds. Yeah, Norse-inspired cyberpunk. I looked at this last week. I think I mentioned it last week. I hope I did. And it looks super fun. I like the art style. It's definitely a really weird kind of like genre mash of cyberpunk, Norse mythology and stuff. But I'm still interested. It's got me curious. And it looks well done. I haven't jumped on the Jumpstart yet, just because it's a little bit pricey, I think, for like a Jumpstart. This is not when I'm trying to save money for a $150 Kickstarter with Pinnacle. So either way, it's being produced by Metamorphic Digital Studio, which I believe is the people who do the VTT stuff for Savage Worlds, so like for Pinnacle, they do all the VTT stuff. So that's really cool that they're getting in on that. So double check that I'm correct on that, but I believe I am. Science Fiction Companion is shipping now. And then after this, they'll start hopefully get the Pathfinder books and all that coming out soon. Real quick, before I jump into anything else, I have some questions. The people coming in here asking me about stuff. Let's see here. I saw one thing I really wanted to do. There you go. Here's him. Hold up. Nope. You can't just say almost up your whiskey and then not talk about the whiskey. What are you drinking tonight? So this is actually my decanter whiskey, which is my infinity bottle, meaning I take like the last bit of whiskey that's at the end of my bottles, whether it be Irish Scotch, bourbon, any whiskey, usually not Canadian unless it's good, really, particularly good Canadian. And I will just throw this in this bottle. I do keep track of what's in it, although I've stopped keeping track of my pours just because I'm like, I don't know how much I carry anymore. But that means there's just a lot of different whiskey in here, giving me a very interesting whiskey. Right now, this is a decent amount of rye and peat inside this one. If it wasn't this, I'd be drinking some Irish right now. But if people are interested, I don't know if you are, you're probably not, but I actually ran another YouTube channel a long time ago called Thrifty Whiskey that was about budget whiskey options. So, anyways, back to the main video. Let's see here. So that is the newsletter. I will also mention that the Solomon Kane RPG stuff should be coming soon. So if you backed that through Monolith, you should be getting that soon. I've seen people already get their stuff. I think mine's still waiting. I have one of the bigger sets. I got the RPG vault for that as well as the books. And I have been told by one of my players that I don't have to run that one, and he'll run it because he really likes Solomon Kane and really wants to make us like very Puritan and very like goody two-shoe type characters, very heroic characters. And I'm like, that sounds awesome. Yes, I will play instead of DMing. So I'm excited for that. But I'll have to wait till after I get back from Scotland in the fall. Yeah. Anyways, moving on. So that's everything. We'll go ahead and jump back over to the slides, wherever they went. So move them around. Here we go. So Kickstarters. Let's go ahead and talk about Kickstarters real quick. Ending Thursday, March 13th is Deadlands Lost Colony. This started today. They're already made their goal. They're like 800%. Go check it out. If you're interested in Lost Colony, interested in Mad World, if you're interested in Lost Colony and have not started Lost Colony, there's a really good deal that you should check out. So go ahead. Coming Tuesday, March 25th is, and this is just, I just saw this like 2 hours before this live stream, that Vermilium, The Sick and the Dead, is coming out March 25th. So that's 1 month from today. The Kickstarter for Vermilion, Sick and Dead, the next adventure for Vermilion, will be releasing. I'm super excited because I really enjoy Vermilion as a setting. I haven't had a chance to play it yet. I have the other adventure, the Blood Hunt, on my shelf back here, and hopefully I get to play it sometime soon. So, but we'll see. So the two Kickstarters I'm aware of that are either going on right now or are happening. We're going to jump over to some other products, though, that came out this past week. The first one is one that you can imagine I'm probably super excited about, and that is the City Guard Chronicles Case of the Birthday Deathday. I love City Guard Chronicles. I love their adventures. They've been so much fun. I've really enjoyed all the ones I've ran, including in some of the one sheets. I need to spend a little more time doing more of the one sheets, but I really enjoyed these adventures. I have a whole entire binder dedicated down here to me printing out the City Guard Chronicles and have them all ready to run right out of the binder. So that's how much I love City Guard Chronicles. So that came out. Check that out. There's a link down below if you're interested. The other product I wanted to highlight, and maybe this isn't worth highlighting, but I think it is, because I'm super excited about the setting, is Scarlands Creature Profiles Flesh Corruptor. I did another creature profile review of the previous monster. I compared it to the 5e version. If you think I should do a review of this one as well, doing a comparison, I will happily do so, but I have not currently done so. So, but I'm super excited for this setting. I'm super excited for the Scarlands Creature Profile, Scarlands itself, to release. I know that's supposed to hopefully happen sometime this year. So we'll see. Again, excited. I really like the setting. Looked in 5e. Never have to play it, but I like the idea, like the setting as a whole, as a feel for it. I really enjoy it, and I'm excited to see it come to Savage Worlds. And there we go. Back over to our slides. So that's the new products. This month's Ace Swag licensing spotlight is the Secret World. The Secret World's expansion for the North American Kickstarter that ended last Saturday, but you can still, if you go to the link down below, grab the physical book. This is my Templar edition cover that was specific for the Kickstarter. If you get a copy of the Secret World, it'll be more like this cover here. You play as agents with special abilities who are fighting cryptids in the modern day world, under through organizations and other societies, factions. Like this is my Templar. In the picture here, you see Illuminati on the left, dragons in the center. These are different factions who all have their own goals, but they also all do the same thing in that they are fighting the cryptids or doing something with cryptids. So I'd recommend checking this out if you're interested. I think it's a really cool setting. At some point, I'm going to talk about all the settings I have and just go through like my top 5. Like this is the settings I really want to run right now, and just talk about that. And then I might do that next week. I kind of want to wait for a few more physical books to come in, but I might have to do that as a video sometime soon, of like which settings I really want to run, like right now or next or something like that. All right, so that is all of our news today. I'm going to put this over here. And we're going to talk about our main topic. If you're just joining us, I'm Goose, and this is the Savage Goose Show, where we talk about things from Savage Worlds. And today we're talking about games being rules light, rules heavy, and or crunchy. And what does that mean? Now, before we get into that, what I'm going to say is not unique to Savage Worlds. So I'm going to talk about some things how we're going to define rules heavy versus rules light, and rules being crunchy or the game being crunchy. But some of what I'm going to say later about Savage Worlds is not unique to Savage Worlds, and it's true of other systems out there that are more, and not just like other generic toolbox settings like GURPS and Fate, like Savage Worlds, but also even D&D and Pathfinder, where they can have some of the things I'm going to say are kind of true about them too. And so I just want to make sure that want to be clear that I'm not saying that these things are true just of Savage Worlds, but that they can be true of pretty much any game, depending on your situation, how you run your game, and the setting you're running it in. So, real quick, I do want to kind of jump through your comments real quick. Caveman Kavan says, what makes a game rules heavy is when they make you purchase abilities to do something you'd been able to do beforehand simply by asking and rolling. That's a fair point. I like that. Let's see here. Kirsten, feel it, for example, sliding down a curtain with a knife. Yeah, you could have just done that. Yeah, okay, I can see that. And I think that is something that comes into play when we talk about certain things in Savage Worlds, like when we make edges. Are we making edge for something that you could already do, or most GMs would have let you done anyways? Because sometimes players, what will happen, and this can get really frustrating for players. It's like, hey, can I do this? And then someone else who knows all the rules very well is like, no, there's a edge specifically so you can do that. And it's like, oh, are you stepping on the basically, are you allowing your players to step on the toes of another edge? So that's an important point. Let's see here. Hey Pete, welcome back from your weekend of playing Savage Worlds. System rules layering is where I think it becomes heavy. Finkel, I'll be happy to hear what you think, what you mean by that. Let's see here. Oh, Peter says, I've always described Savage Worlds as a variable weight. I'll move this over here. A variable weight rule system. And I would 100% agree with that. And I want to talk about more of that in a bit. Let's see here. I think it's medium crunch, about the same as the more streamlined 5e, but a nice thing is inclusion of narrative systems like dramatic tasks. Yeah, I like that too. I want to talk about whiskey. Just going through everything. Everyone's making some great conversation in the chat. So real quick, before we get too far, I am going to talk about first, what are we defining these things as? What are we defining as rules light and rules heavy? I have there's another Discord I'm a part of with some game designers, not just Savage Worlds game designers that they make. In fact, I'm the only person that regularly talks about Savage Worlds in that group. And they're a bunch of game designers, and I like to hear their thoughts and stuff because they have a lot of interesting things about game design and why you make a game the way it is. One of the things I heard a lot today is don't take down a fence until you know what the fence is for. And so in understanding what rules are there for is important. And so I find that I really enjoy learning more about rules so that I can understand why they're there, what kind of things they do, and then going from there. Now, Peter over at Tales from Elsewhere, he's the one who runs this Discord, he came up with a way of measuring rules light versus rules heavy that I really enjoy, because it's not a simple sliding scale of a game is either rules light or it's rule heavy. And I would even say that crunchiness does not even have to factor into how light or heavy rules are. Crunchiness of a game can be completely separate from that. So the three things that we basically came down, and this is some other people in the Discord also talked about this. There's three things that we can measure Savage or any tabletop role-playing game as being rules light or rules heavy in these three categories. One, detail. Rules that detail how many steps are involved for a given mechanic. You can think about the way Savage Worlds, I mean, I'll talk about Savage Worlds later, but basically how many steps does it take to give a different action? How detailed is the game's mechanics on doing certain things? So that's one area, is detail. Second area is breadth. How explicit does the game describe certain rules? How explicit are the rules in the game? How far-reaching is its systems? How many things are there? Savage Worlds has a lot of situational rules, for example. How many breadth of things are there? And then the last thing is efficiency of the rules. Basically just what is your mechanics? What is the game to, game mechanics and rules to text ratio in a book? How efficient is the game at explaining how to play the game? Someone else mentioned that you can also measure a game basically just on a rules light versus rules heavy, on how quickly you can start a game and quickly understand the core mechanics of how the game works. And that really resonates with me as a good way, because there's certain games that definitely take a lot longer for you to understand how to play the game. Now, what about crunch, right? So that's rules light. That's how you can measure like how heavy or light the rules are. But what about crunch itself? many people would define crunch as something that's separate from the rules of the game and their heaviness. And instead, it's about how many options and player choices there are inside the game. Not just the character creation, but strategy, and how you can initiate different tactics. Now, I would say that, in my opinion, this tends to lend itself to heavier games, but I would not necessarily say that's a 1-to-1 ratio. Like, oh, the heavier the game, the more crunchy it is. And that's definitely not the case. There's definitely games that are rules light that can be extremely crunchy. Now, the example someone gave of a game that is, and this is not a tabletop role-playing game, but it is a game that is crunchy but fairly rules light, is chess. The rules of chess are fairly simple. There are some like more complicated pieces. I may even put it in like a medium complication, but the strategy of chess, the crunchiness of chess is really heavy. You can do a lot of different tactics. There's a lot of different things, and like, you may understand how to play the game. I understand how to play the game, but when it comes to me playing against people who know what they're doing, I've played a decent amount of chess in my life. I played, but when I play with people who like really know chess, I just get destroyed usually. I've learned a few tactics over the years on how to play chess better, but I still, generally speaking, lose to most people who know what they're doing at all. So it's like one of those things where the game is simple, and I don't understand how to play. Doesn't mean that I understand all the crunchiness that there is to the game. Now, because of this, when we determine a game is crunchy, most people look at the rules for combat, and which tends to then say, what has the most crunch, right? That usually most of the options that game has are in its combat section. So now we have to ask, how does Savage Worlds stand up to these details? Now, looking over everyone's comments here, I want to kind of jump out real quick. Adam says, heavy rules for me happens when you have to change the rules in order to play your story. Not just house rules, but if the rules specifically prevent you from playing otherwise common tropes. Sure. Maybe just playing the wrong game at that point. Let's see here. Peter says, I recently read through Mothership, which is I would describe as rules light, but compared to Savage Worlds, it is more limited in the types of game experiences you can provide. Not to say it's worse. Yeah, and I would say it's more of a thing about how the games are designed. There are games that are designed specifically for particular story narrative options and may not be able to expand it like Savage Worlds does. That being said, a lot of games that we see in Savage Worlds have mechanics added onto them, like different settings and stuff, that make it so that you feel a certain way. And we're going to talk about like the options a little bit more in a bit. Ted says, I've been running my Forever D20 group through a few different one sheets for Sway to introduce them to a variety of rules mechanics. Now I provide them a list with many of the available settings. Yeah, that's exciting. There's a lot of different settings for Savage Worlds. Very different genres too. Let's see here. Peter says, I just talked about 15 people Savage Worlds. I explained Benny's, Wild Die, explain Dice. I don't explain anything else until we get to it. I don't see anyone getting left behind. Yes, I would 100% agree with that. We're going to get to that too. Let's see here. More stuff about Mothership. Someone mentioned Morkborg. I know that's not how you pronounce it, but that's the easiest way that I can, as an American speaker, pronounce it without someone give me the phonetic pronunciation. Let's see here. Morkborg, very rules light, from my understanding. Yep. Let's see here. Oh, sorry. That's related to the conversation about Savage Pathfinder. So how does Savage Worlds stand up? Well, talking to some people who I know how to play Savage Worlds and have played it in the past, we said that it has, that for one, Savage Worlds has high breadth, meaning there's a lot of situational rules that you can use inside Savage Worlds. Not so that you have to, but there's a lot that you can use. So, and different mechanics, different systems you can use, and you don't have to, but you can. What about detail? Well, I would say generally speaking, and it's not always the case. There's a few situations we're going to talk about later that it's not the case. But generally speaking, I would say that Savage Worlds has a lower detail. I don't think it's the lowest detail, but for the most part, you would just have to roll a single die roll. And by a single die roll, I mean like your wild die and your skill die, you roll it. And unless you are exploding or you're re-rolling with bennies, you generally know what the result is from that single hand throw, the hand gesture, right? So lower detail, it's not like super low, and say it's not medium. I'd say like somewhere between the low and medium in detail. Okay, efficiency. I would say Savage Worlds is a fairly efficient system. The rulebook is about 200 pages, and it covers a lot of things. And you can get the player's book, which has everything you need to play the game, and I say more than everything you need to play the game in the player's book. And the player's book is only 156 pages, and that includes like a whole bunch of powers, edges. It's not just the rules on how to play, it's like all the other character options too, right? So you don't need a whole lot just to know how to play the game. So where's the exceptions, right? There's some exceptions to these details I've said, like breadth and detail and efficiency, and some of those exceptions are like combat. There's a lot of situational rules in Savage Worlds for combat there that you don't necessarily have to use. There's unstable platforms, there's illumination penalties, there's cover, there's hitting through cover, there's backlash, there's called shots. There's so many different options, which I like in one sense, that I like that they're there if I wanted to do that. If I wanted to impose a penalty for, this platform's unstable, and there's already a guideline there. And I think that's one of the things that I like about using Savage Worlds. I like to use it more as guidelines than actual rules. Insert meme here of they're more like guidelines than actual rules. Because it gave me, okay, an unstable platform should be about this amount. It should be about a -2. If I want to impose some sort of penalty. This level of darkness is this amount. And you can make that very crunchy, or you can use it as a guideline as a GM to know this is what I think I want to give to players. Subsystems can be seen as crunchy there, or maybe more detail, I should say, in that you could just have a small conversation, roll a persuasion roll, and you convince the king that he should let you do whatever you want. But personally, I really like the social conflict rules. They help give me a much better guideline that also helps me narrate the story in a little bit better way. It makes the game more immersive for me because I get to have that banter back and forth between the king and the players, and I have some guidelines on what the results of that should be. Not just I'm going to help you, or no, I hate you. There's a level of different things that could be the case in the situation. So there's different ways that the king may respond to the situations. And I love dramatic tasks. Dramatic tasks are wonderful. Could I just roll one thing to hack into or to defuse a bomb? We'll say that. Yeah, absolutely. And you could still do that. You don't have to make every time someone defuses a bomb into a dramatic task. But when it's appropriate, you can. And I will say some of the best times I've had running games is when we've had dramatic tasks, especially when we've had dramatic tasks inside of combats. So again, there's times there. Now, I would say combat can definitely be crunchy and high detail because in combat, you have to roll a hit. You have to roll the damage. And then you have to apply armor piercing if there is armor to pierce. And then you also have to, if there is no armor piercing, or there's still armor left, you have to reduce that armor from your damage. And then you have to calculate raises, the amount of wounds you did. I will say there's some times in combat, like Savage Worlds combat can be a little bit slower just because of those kind of mechanics. I love those mechanics, but I think sometimes those mechanics can cause a little bit of things to get they're more detailed, right? All those things have to be done to resolve one action, which is me swinging my sword at the person. There's a lot of rolls that have to be done, a lot of calculations have to be done in order for me to resolve that action. The quicker we can resolve actions, I think the less detailed the game is. And there's some cheats and stuff that you can do to resolve damage more quickly. If you know how to do the math right and quickly in your head, it's going to be fine. But that's the general concept. So that's my kind of things there. Now, all that being said, is Savage Worlds crunchy? Well, I think it can be. And that depends on two things to me. One is how you run your game. So again, we talked about, do you use all the situation rules, or do you just leave them behind? Or do you use them as guidelines to give your comprehensive modifier? If you keep track of every little roll, or do you just let the rolls fly and then apply the modifier? You give the modifiers a generic comprehensive modifier. Do you like say, okay, you have -2 for illusion, you have -2 for a steel platform, you have -2 because they have cover, you have a -2 because you're wounded. Are you even doing all this, or are you saying, hey, you have a -6 overall? This is a really hard thing. Instead of just listing them out, just go, you as a GM, just say, you know what, you have -6, or maybe even less. You just say, you know what, I'm just gonna give you a -4 because of X, Y, and Z, and you just go with it. You don't have to have very specific rules set up. And that also matters on the setting you're running, right? Different settings run differently because of their own rules, but also because they feel different. To give some examples, Battle Lords and Rifts, Rifts and Battle Lords, they're a lot more crunchier. They have a lot more tactics going into them. There's a lot more combat. There's a lot more stuff happening in general. There's a lot more complicated rules in here, but that's kind of the game that you're going for. You're going for a more crunchy, gritty game inside of Savage Battle Lords. Whereas if you're running Pine Box Middle School, Sleuth Squad, you're not going to make the game that crunchy. It's a different kind of game, different style. Things are going to play out differently. And yeah, if you want to make your games more crunchy, if you want to learn how to do situation rules, if you want to learn how to run certain kinds of combats well and everything, you should go listen to Peter Slum and I on TPK 101. I'm currently editing our shootout video. It's been taking me way too long to edit that, and I apologize, Peter, for not getting that out sooner. But you should go check it out. So you can have some help on running your games in a more crunchier fashion, more tactical set fashion, if that's what you want. So it's really up to there's different factors on what makes a game crunchy. And I don't think Savage Worlds has to be crunchy, but I think it can be if you want to be. Let's see here. So that's my kind of like my spiel on that. But in the end, I do think that Savage Worlds is easy to explain to brand new players on how to play the game. And I think it's easier than games like 5e, right? Well, I can hand someone a character sheet in Savage Worlds, and a character sheet in Savage Worlds tends to be, if you look at an art type character sheet, tends to be 1 page. It's not 2 pages. I mean, I think I have some character sheet somewhere around here that is 2 pages because I think it's like 4 pages because I have powers and I got like power cards and everything like listed out. It does not have to be that way. I just have things laid out really widespread. But most archetypes come on a 1-page sheet, not front and back, just 1 front page. And I can hand that to someone and explain them to the basics of the rules in 10 minutes, I'll say, and they get it and they can just play. Now, usually we'll give them, not give them anything with powers. And if they have edges, they can read the edges, and usually edges are pretty situational and say, oh, hey, I want to, and it kind of pushes players to go, oh, my character is good at this one thing. Like, oh, I have the investigator edge. I'm good at noticing things. Hey, can I use this edge to find anything here? I'm like, yeah, sure. You're going to notice. Or my personal favorite is I like to not tell players how mechanics work and just like tell them how the game works core, but then be like, now just tell me whatever you want to do and I'll tell you what you need to roll, right? Just start with what you want to do narratively and I'll tell you what to do. And that just makes, in my opinion, just makes things a lot more fun. So I've introduced brand new players. I introduced a table where 3 of the 5 players were brand new to Savage Worlds, and they had a blast. One of them had powers, and I just said, you know what? Like, hey, can I do a shape change? I'm like, you know what? Yeah, you can do shape change. I'm not going to worry about PowerPoints. Just roll your spell casting, and there you go. And are they going to know all the options like wild attacks, dodging, aiming, all those other options? No, but they don't need to. It's kind of like what Peter said, like they don't need to until they do. And once they do, you can tell them. And if you see them struggling with hitting monsters, like, hey, there is this mechanic called wild attack. And if you're like, oh, players are going to be mad they didn't know this ahead of time. Players who respond like that the first time they're playing, I personally find a little frustrating. If they can be accepted, like, yes, you are learning this, and they're learning this, and I'm just introducing these rules as we go. I think that's a good idea. Ted is mentioning something. Hey, that comic from Up to 4 Players is great. Yeah, I was actually going to pull it up. There's a reason that I think Savage Worlds is easy, because part of the reason I think Savage Worlds is easy is that you can explain the rules for this game with a 2-page comic. I want to share my screen real quick. This is the comic. This is rule page 1 of 2. just read through this comic. I thought about making like a skit that's like based on this, but it's like, never mind. I probably won't do that. Oh, people send the comic because this comic is going to be shorter to read than me making a skit about it. The core of what you need to know about the game is in here. In fact, I think you could probably remove some of the stuff in this section, and you would still get it. You would still understand this game. So, yeah, I go check this out. I'll drop this in the comments here, and I'll put it into the anything else later. But it's such a good comic to be used, and it's the number one reference thing when people ask, "Hey, how do you play Savage Worlds?" People just say, "Read this comic. Read this comic." And to me, that's why I put Savage Worlds in the lighter side of rules, light versus heavy, because the essence of the game can be learned so quickly and so easily. Is there a lot of depth to the game? I'm gonna say, or a lot of detail or breadth to the game. Yeah, there's a lot of things you can learn about the game, and it comes up with my players because we tend to be more tactical, more knowledgeable the rules, and or like know the rule exists, but not know what the details are. And so yeah, we come and we will often like have to eventually reference back to the rules again. But when it comes to just playing a game, you don't need to. You can just look at this. And for that reason, because of the way that characters are in Savage Worlds, I actually find it a lot easier to use Savage Worlds than 5e, because 5e tends to circle around a lot more around your character's abilities, the class abilities, the feats, the abilities, which means a lot more reading of these paragraphs and rules and how these things, and understand how the rules work. Whereas oftentimes characters in Savage Worlds, especially archetype characters, they are focused around the skills they have. And when you say, hey, yeah, you can do that, give me a notice roll at -2, they just look at notice, they go, cool, I got a d6, they make their roll. There you go. Now, there's systems that I think make this even easier. To say, cool. What's the game I played recently? Cairn has a roll under system, and you say, cool, make a strength roll. You roll a d20. Did you get under what your number was? Cool, you succeeded. That's really cool too. That's really neat. But I think on the scale of Savage Worlds, I would put Savage Worlds, in my opinion, more on the lighter side, with a lot of breadth and options that are available, and the crunchiness being a sliding scale depending on who you are as a GM and what kind of game you're trying to run. With that being said, let me go back to our thoughts here. Let me come pull out here. See what things I missed. Mothership. Gary says, I have a table full of new players. I may not use all the situational in order to give them the flavor. Of course, I would probably let them know that. Bingle says, layering as I see it is where you into the system mechanically, and after the core rules, you have to go through so many more additional steps to get the mechanics you need for the system. Sure. Yeah, Pierre says the rule book might be 200 pages, but the actual rules to play the game are under 40 of those. Yeah, a lot of the pages are powers, edges, and other stuff like that. That name in my brain just makes Star Trek ME. I can't get past that. What name? I missed the name. Oh, is it Venkel? Some other name. I don't know. Venkel, your name does make you think of Star Trek. I don't know why. Or is it Morkborg? Maybe Morkborg makes you think Star Trek. Let's see here. I'm finding my players to understand that they can use powers to frame flavor. Yes, trappings are one of the things that Savage Worlds, I think people really have a hard time with Savage Worlds, because it is a requirement that you have to do. You have to provide the flavor, and I really like that because you can flavor it almost any way you want, and it really adds into the depth of the game, the breadth of the game. Actually, I'd say, but I think some players have a hard time. They go, okay, we cast bolt. It's like, well, what does it look like? And I personally like to have players give me the name what it does, and then like by describing it, I know, okay, cool, roll your damage or whatever you need to do. Stefan says social conflict rules are neat for when you have conversation to have more weight. Get the guard to let you in, just a roll. Negotiate a treaty, social conflict. Yes, exactly. That's exactly what you need to be doing here. That's exactly if you're making, because talking to a guard is not very dramatic, I will say. Whereas negotiate treaty, much more dramatic. Vince says light and heavy is highly dependent on your RPG system experience. That's absolutely true. My experience is fairly limited. I played 3.5, I played 4th, I played 5e, I played some Pathfinder, some Pathfinder 2nd edition. I've played Dread. Dread is a very rules light game. In fact, I'm trying to think of the only game I can think of that's lighter rules than Dread is like, I can't. The game that doesn't have any sort of resolution mechanic. If you're not familiar with Dread, Dread is a Jenga Tower game. You don't roll dice. Anytime you have to do something, you have to. The GM tells you how many blocks on Jenga Tower to pull, and if the tower falls over while you're pulling those blocks out, you die. So very rules light. I'm trying to think of any heavier rule systems I've played. I think the heaviest I've played is just 3.5. I don't tend to push myself towards rules heavy games. I played Call of Cthulhu as well, so I guess I have a little more experience. I think I have. Pierce says, as a GM, I don't let combats run out of control. I always try to put limits on them, rarely to let them run past 5 rounds. And generally speaking, I would agree with that. Combat should not last more than 5 rounds. If you're worried it's going to last only 2 rounds, you want it to last a little bit longer. There's some ways you can kind of adjust things there to help out with that. So yeah, look at that. Adam says, I have other GMs my game. We learned a long time ago to divide and conquer. I read the story. They keep an eye on the rules. By the final table judgment. Nice. I like that. I have heard of a lot of like co-GMing stuff. But yeah, I've heard a lot about it. So glad it's working out for you. Michael says, heavy and crunchy is not necessarily bad things. It's that what you want. Yes. Absolutely. And what other things, again, like he's like Finkel saying, subtitles lets you, I feel like, and I think Finkel feels the same way, it does let you easily either pull back and make the game a little bit more simple, or you can just go wild and have some crazy gritty games. There is some extra gritty stuff in, this. You can play a game with the science fiction companion that is super, super gritty with different rules for starship combat, but you don't have to. You could just say, cool, make your fighting roll, your piloting roll, whatever. I've had some very simple combats in when I was playing Last Parsec back in Deluxe Edition. Yeah, absolutely. You can absolutely create a very tactical, very crunchy game in Savage Worlds as well. To be clear, Savage Worlds is based on a game on a miniatures game, which is like a war game, right? That's where the original rules came out of. Was first you had Deadlands, then you had Deadlands, the Great Rail Wars, which was a miniatures game for Deadlands, and out of those rule sets came the Savage Worlds rules. Savage Worlds rules. There we go. He also says, this is why I'm a fan. I can create a lot of different gaming experiences with one rule set. Yeah, and I'll say I haven't had a whole lot of experience with some other generic toolbox gaming sets like GURPS. I am working with someone that I know through a Facebook page on maybe getting into a game of GURPS, so he can show it to me. We have this like little discussion about GURPS versus Savage Worlds sometimes. I don't think he's played Savage Worlds, and I haven't played GURPS, so can't really speak to it. But for me, I've heard of GURPS, always makes me go, oh, that seems so like too rules heavy. And in reality, GURPS might just be the same as Savage Worlds, where it's a toolbox and you can make it ready, or you can make it very simple. So yeah. Let's see here. Just looking through a few things here, and I do have a couple of videos on how you can make your games go faster and how you can have more options and stuff in combat and stuff. So take a look at those if you need any ideas for how to do that. Man, I got a lot of people talk about cons. I need to go to a con and play some games because I've never been to a gaming convention. Surprise. Like this. Everyone, I saw like half people who come to watch my stuff are running stuff at conventions, and I've never been to one. Mostly just because there's not a whole lot around here in Pittsburgh. I'd have to travel a bit to do so and take days off, and wife's got. I don't want to leave my wife home with kids for a weekend or anything, so we just need to find a babysitter and go the whole week is what we do. together. Let's see here. Hamster Doom says, I think there's a Dread version of Trailer Park Shark Attack as well. Is there? That would be. I would totally run that in Dread. I want to play. I haven't run it in Savage Worlds yet. I did print it, but that does seem like a really good system for Dread, because then you could just have people pull like crazy. The thing about Dread, though, is that the game does not progress very fast in Dread, which is usually a bad thing, right? Usually, when you're getting to kind of progress and don't get bogged down, resolution in Dread does take a long time, but everyone is so engaged on this tense moment of people pulling that no one cares. When you look at a campaign in Dread, it seems short. Like, it seems pretty short on how long it's going to go. And you feel like, oh, this isn't going to take long at all. And it still ends up taking like 3 or 4 hours because people are just slowly trying to pull out those blocks, right? Let's see here. Ted says he's going to run through the Night Train at an upcoming gaming weekend AltCon. Pick up a setting and we'll start. They are going to pick a setting and then we'll start plopping. Perfect. Yep. There's so many to choose from. Like I said, I have like so many back here of campaigns I would like to run and systems I want to run, and so I'm going around to it. I'm going to be gone not gone, but I'm going to be out of the States for the summer for about 2.5 months with my family. I will be in Scotland, and my regular gaming group is trying to decide what they want to do. And one of the things they're doing, I'm kind of jealous of, is they're going to run Savage Eberron, which I would say probably has a few more rules that than regular Savage Worlds. The characters are +4 in this instead of +2 from base Savage Worlds. So that's a good example. Like a game like adds a little bit more, but not too much more to the game. Stephen Johnson says, I'm fairly new to Savage Worlds, but the plot point campaign concept seems pretty sweet. It is. It is one of those things. The way the plot point campaigns work has made my life so much easier. I'm currently running through an adventure path right now for Savage Runelords, and the way it's designed is not the same as a plot point campaign. Let's see here. This here was the first plot point campaign I ever ran, and it was so easy to run. I basically had to read through the whole campaign, which is it's a short book. Read through the whole campaign, and then whenever we wanted to run a whenever it was time, we ran one plot point, right? I just had to read that one plot point again, and it's like 2 pages of the plot point, and just kind of go. And the nice part about plot point campaigns, I feel like, is that they give you room for your players to do kind of different things, but for you to basically have a general sense of what needs to happen. Same with one sheets, is that one sheets have very little like details on what you need to do, and you can still let your players kind of explore a little bit, but still guide them to the right direction. So, the plot point campaigns are great. I'm enjoying running Rise of the Runelords as a adventure path, but it's definitely not the same as a plot point campaign. It feels a bit different to me than what I've seen in plot point campaigns. Amps Doom report back how after I've had a deep fried Mars bar. I've essentially already had a deep fried Mars bar. It's just a deep fried Milky Way, and it's a lot. It's a lot. I'm not sure if you have county fairs where you're at, but like I grew up going county fairs, probably like county fairs and city fairs. I probably go like 2 to 4 fairs a year growing up. So there's plenty of opportunity for us to get deep fried foods like that. Sorry, again, +2/+4. How complex do you want your ancestors to be? Ratchet up or down? Yeah, exactly. Do you want your ancestries to be more complicated? You want to talk about complicated ancestries? Go look at Battle Lords. I think they basically said that in Battle Lords, your ancestries are essentially starting at like your ancestries. If you keep your character at novice rank, your ancestry itself is like a seasoned character in of itself. Maybe it was veteran. Like seasoned. Like their ancestries are super complicated in this setting. But that's what they're going for. That's the kind of game they're going for. And you can still do that in Savage Worlds without having to change systems. You still know how to play the base game, but things can get so much more complicated in Savage Worlds. That's one of the things I love about it. Now, I will say this kind of game is not typically what I run, right? I tend to run more game, I'm looking forward a little bit more to running Sleuth Squad. So it's a little more light, a little more lighthearted, a little more fun, a little more I don't know, peppy, something. I don't know what the word is. Like something like that, or Street Wolves, or Vermilium. Like this, like these are just a little bit. They each have their own rules. They're a little bit more specific to their setting, but and they can ratchet up or down the difficulty based on how you run them and how the rules are displayed in these game systems themselves or in these settings themselves. I have so many books I have to put away after this. Vingle says, I'm running Savage Rifts right now, and I've come to the conclusion that I wouldn't run that for our new Savage Worlds players because you take frameworks that is like making a veteran level superior. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, and that's basically what I'm saying. Like with Rifts and like Battle Lords, there's a much more crunchier systems, or not system, I hate saying systems, crunchier settings for Savage Worlds versus like, again, Pine Box Middle School where you're playing middle schoolers, or Sleuth Squad, stuff like that. So yeah, but nonetheless, they're all based on the core system. They still all use the core rulebook, and they're still all great in their own. So that's my thoughts on Savage Worlds and games heavy, light. Again, shout out to Peter over at Tales from Elsewhere for kind of talking to me about this, and the other people in his Discord server. Thank you all for joining me. Let's see if you have any other questions, leave them in the chat real quick. I'm going to kind of answer them right here. Let's see here. That's why I'm starting my players on ETU. I wish the physical books were available. Yeah. Side tracking here, right? Yeah, no, I started when our first campaign in Savage Worlds was ETU. That's not true. Sorry. Technically, my first campaign was Rippers, but when we really got into playing Savage Worlds, I started with ETU. So we did ETU, and then we did Pathfinder, and armor piercing wasn't something we concerned ourselves a whole lot with inside of ETU, and as well as powers. We didn't really have powers and do powers. Yeah. And I wish I also wish the physical books were available. I know part of the thing is like we're saying here, ETU 2.0 is coming soon. Which is great. I'm excited. I'm super excited. I'm really excited for that. There's not much that I'm not excited about these days. When it comes to Savage Worlds, except for Rifts. Rifts is not exciting me. I'm sorry, guys. I'm glad everyone else is loving it, but it's just not doing it for me. Maybe someday. Yeah, ETU 2.0 is coming soon. But Shane just talked about in the live stream before this live stream about how they don't tend to do a lot of reprints of their books, which I wish they would, right? And all the books are still available via PDF. You can still go to the TTRPG or through Pinnacle's website and buy the PDFs. But there has been a thing where I know there's a lot of logistics that I'm not aware of and don't understand. But just like, man, I really wish that all this stuff would be available in print more readily, because it is really kind of just disheartening when I see people, and I'm sure it is for them too, when people say, hey, I really want to play this game, will it be Savage Pathfinder, or core Savage Worlds, and they're like, hey, I want to play, but I can't find this book anywhere in print. And it's like I know that there's been a constant issue with keeping supplies. So I think of like the Savage Pathfinder books available. So it'd be. I feel like that's one of the things that I would like to see change. I mentioned before. It's just being able to keep products in stock so they can actually give the products to the people that want to have them. A lot of people don't like PDFs. I don't like PDFs either. When I go to TTRPG and I buy new products, I try to buy products that have a POD option, a print on demand option, and I'll just buy the print on demand option and also get the PDF. because I'll probably still have to use the PDF at some point. I do like having the PDF and having access to it. In my ideal world, I have the PDF and the physical copy because I can. Something about the physical copy, I like having more at my game table than a tablet with a PDF. But at the same time, when I'm just like trying to research and stuff, sometimes PDF is really easy because I can do Control F and find whatever I want. So yeah, hopefully we can see more stuff staying in print from Pinnacle, and hopefully we'll see some stuff be reprinted with the E2 2.0 update, including hopefully a revised version of the core rulebook for Suede. So looking forward to that. All right. Well, that's all I have today. A little bit of tangent there at the end. If you have any questions or anything, let me know. Again, also let me know if if I should do another creature profile on the updated Scarland and the most recent Scarland creature profile. Whenever the Gauntlet of Sparagos comes out, I do want to talk about that and compare that to the previous version because I've run that adventure, surprisingly. And then let's see what else there was. Oh, and then if you think I should do a video on my top 5 settings in my backlog that I want to play, let me know, and I'll do that too. If you have any other ideas for future videos, future live streams specifically, please let me know. And I hope to see you all next week with whatever topic I come up with. Cheers, everyone.